Welcome to today's episode of the Alfa Chat Podcast. We've got Adam Cumberland from Cumberland Hypnotherapy.
My name's Adam Cumberland. I'm a certified relationship coach, business coach, and hypnotherapist here in central London. I remember I sort of hit a bit of a low point. I remember sort of laying in bed thinking, what the hell is it all about? Even though I had a nice job, I had a nice car, but something just didn't feel right. When I got made redundant, I didn't do anything for about a year or so. And I often say to people, the one thing that sort of makes us happy in life, I've always said it's progress.
What would you say is some of the biggest transformations that you've seen over time?
We had one lady that was 23 stone in weight that's now 11 and a half.
Wow.
Halved her body weight in 15 or 18 months or something.
Wow.
And also with people like their eating pattern, it's so tied up with their emotions. I mean, people are eating due to emotional triggers. And so when we help people, it's important that we do it not just logically, but emotionally as well. Don't go alone. Don't do anything alone. Don't try and do your business on your own.
Yeah.
Don't try and do anything on your own. Be a team player. And if you don't know how to be a team player, well, figure it out.
Welcome to today's episode of the Alfa Chat Podcast. I'm really excited because we've got Adam Cumberland from Cumberland Hypnotherapy. You're really going to enjoy this episode. Adam, thank you so much for coming along here today, mate.
Absolute pleasure.
Really appreciate you coming along. How have you been?
I've been good. The sun started coming out in the last few days. What more do we need?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? But it's a little bit of sun on my face. I'm good to go.
It's well overdue. Absolutely well overdue. So with the podcast, what we like to do is go back right to the start. So I want to take you back to when you were first growing up, your earliest memories. What was life like?
Cool. I tell you, I didn't know you asked me that question. Take me right back. Yeah, I think as a kid, I had a pretty good life. It wasn't bad at all. I think I was as a character. I think I was a bit of a nervous Nelly.
Yeah.
I was a bit of a scaredy cat. I mean, if I saw the roller coaster rides, I would always go, maybe not, maybe not. And but then I think that sort of carried on a little bit sort of later into life as well. And I remember having quite a good job in the city, and which was all going quite well. But I always felt quite anxious engaging with other people. It always made me feel a little bit nervous, and I'd always be overthinking conversations before I had the conversation. It was exhausting, And but no, I remember then I got up to about 25 years of age, and I remember I sort of hit a bit of a low point. I remember sort of laying in bed thinking, what the hell is it all about? Because even though I had a nice job, I had a nice car, but something just didn't feel right. And then when I got, when I got made redundant, I didn't do anything for about a year or so. And if nothing else, it really got me thinking. And I remember sort of one night just sort of laying in bed, and I think I just got to that point, when you're just sick and tired of feeling so sick and tired. And I got out of bed. I got my own little Dell computer back then, and I was a bit of a chunky monkey back then, as my mum used to call me. And I got on my little Dell computer, and do you remember it was back in the days before Google? Was it Ask Jeeves?
Ask Jeeves.
Do you remember? You might be a bit too young for that one.
No, I remember.
The little butler man.
Yes, and this was in the very early days of the internet.
Exactly.
Where, like you say, Google wasn't a thing, but I remember I was just starting secondary school, and Ask Jeeves was the thing that we only had like 1 hour every month on the computer, but it was what we used.
Dial up.
Yeah.
Dial up, waiting for the internet to kick in. But no, I just typed into Ask Jeeves. I just typed in, I didn't type in how to get rid of anxiety. I didn't type in how to, lose weight. I just typed in how to get core confidence.
Yeah.
Because I can't even remember where it said. Someone said to me, there's a difference between being confident and core confidence. I can't remember who said that to me now, to be honest. But and it came up with all these different things. It was like life coaching, NLP, hypnotherapy, and various different things. And I typed in, who's the best at this? And it came up with this guy called Richard Bandler, and he was doing these seminars with Paul McKenna. I don't know if you remember Paul McKenna, who was quite famous in the 1990s. He's doing quite a lot now, actually, with Mind Valley. And And he was doing this seminar. It's called "Get the Life You Want" seminar by Richard and Paul. And I read all about it, and I bought it. It was about £400 or something. And I went to the Ibis Hotel in South Kensington. There's about 600 people turned up.
Wow.
And
big event.
yeah, well, I thought so. Yeah. And I walked in there, and I remember sort of Richard come on the stage, and his big whiteboard. He goes, "Any behaviour is a learned behaviour that can be unlearned and relearned in a different way." And I was like, right. And he goes, "Put your hands up. What do you want?" I thought, I'm not putting my hands up. And, I put my hands firmly to the floor. And a few people put their hands up. Someone said, "I want to lose weight."
Yeah.
Someone said, "I want to stop eating chocolate."
Yeah.
Someone says, "I want to meet a partner."
Yeah.
Someone says, "I want to be more confident at presenting myself to others." And I remember sitting there thinking, I need all of these things. Maybe I'm more messed up than I even thought I was. And but if nothing else, I got to the end of that weekend seminar, and wrongly or rightly, I really believed that initial statement that any behavior is a learned behavior that can be unlearned and relearned in a different way. And ever since then, I feel I've been kind of moving in the right direction. That was what, about 24 years ago now. Wow. And I often say to people, the one thing that sort of makes us happy in life is, a lot of people thinks it's, it's ourselves, or it's relationships, or a partner, or our kids. And I've always said it's progress. As long as we feel we're moving forward, it puts a big smile on our faces. But I remember sort of being at that seminar, and they wanted to get someone up on stage, and they said, does anyone have any certain challenges they want to get rid of? And I remember thinking, well, do you know what? I've got no motivation for life whatsoever. I mean, I was just coasting. I mean, I was struggling to get out of bed, and he says, who wants more motivation? Who wants more motivation for the gym? Yeah. And at that point, I did put my hand up. Yeah. Because it was on the second day. I'd kind of warmed up to the whole weekend thing, and
eased yourself in.
Yeah. And oddly enough, he picked me, and I went on stage. I thought, oh God, I'm in it now. Yeah. And so I was on stage with Paul McKenna. I was on there for about, it wasn't long, about 35, 40 minutes or something. And I always hated the gym. I mean, with a passion. Yeah. I mean, the amount of times I got a gym membership, and, I go maybe 3 or 4 times in January, New Year's resolutions. Yeah. And I go twice in February, maybe once in March. Yeah. Don't go in April or May, but I'm not going to cancel it because I'm going to go. Yeah. And then you get to about June, July, and you think, well, actually, I think I better stop paying this membership. I must have done that 6, 7 times, I think, over the years. And so anyway, he took me through this little process, and I can honestly say since then, I've loved exercising. I've loved, and it made me really motivated. And although it made me motivated to go to the gym and exercise, it was what it also done, which I didn't actually really ask for. It just made me motivated just to get on with life.
General
really.
Motivation.
But the actual motivation that he treated me for was actually just to like the gym and to like to exercise. And I can honestly say since then, I love going to the gym now. Yeah. I mean, I used to hate it. I mean, when I did go in those early stages, I'd be doing the machines. I mean, it was a drag.
Going through the
And you
motion.
see these people walking in with a big smile on their faces. Like, what are they so happy about? Like, it's a gym. Now thanks to Paul, I'm one of those people now.
And that was a 35-minute session where you just did hypnotherapy on the stage. Absolutely. In front of everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I was very self-conscious going up onto that stage. Yeah. I mean, I was like, that was definitely pushing my comfort zone. But it was weird. Within about 10 minutes, it's almost like the audience just completely disappeared.
Wow.
It was
And it was just you.
Remember it.
It felt like that. You and him there.
Yeah. It was just me and him. And then it was almost, all I could just hear was his voice, and just the whole audience just kind of disappeared. And then when he brought me back around, it was, I had a very big smile on my face, and I almost didn't know why I had a big smile on my face. And now I see that with my clients.
Well, yeah.
You being one of them, Adam.
Absolutely.
And I never get bored of that look when people open their eyes afterwards. They look like they've had Botox. They're showing all their teeth. Their eyes are sparkling. Yeah. Actually, I'm curious. How have you been? Are you okay to share on your experience?
Absolutely. For me, it was the best thing I've ever done.
Oh, bless you.
And the fact, it's making me feel emotional actually now, because even when you're talking about it and describing it now, I can see my face smiling and my eyes tearing because of
It was quite emotional, wasn't it?
it was an intense 4-hour session. But since that was back in October, how amazing my life has been since then is unreal. It is, for anyone out there that's really struggling, I would forget going to the doctors or anything like that. Just go and get hypnotherapy straight away, because it's such a better way of doing things.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believe, I walked out of your office on Harley Street smiling, like everything had lifted off my shoulders. And I'll speak from the heart about that. It was unreal. And the months that have come after, like everything that we talked about, is just it's been amazing.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
So
Really
I
nice
am,
to hear.
and that's why I wanted to have you here today as well, because I know how much it helped me. And for the people that may be listening to this now or watching this, if you're really struggling, like, I would strongly go and speak to Adam, because he can help you.
Yeah.
Because I've experienced it.
Yeah. I'm a typical Virgo. I'm a complete perfectionist. I like my sessions. I'm not sure if they're the longest in the industry, but they may well be. And but I like to think they're pretty darn thorough.
Yeah.
And
they were.
yeah. I think people just need two things to get the best benefit from these kind of treatments. Is that the first one, they've got to want to change for themselves, not because their partner or anyone else is telling them to change. You've got to want it for yourself. Like I remember myself, getting so many people saying, "Oh, just be yourself." It's like, well, I'm trying and it's not working. But until you get to that point where you actually want to change for yourself, nothing's really ever going to change for anyone. And the second one is just being as open and as honest. Like, do you remember in that initial talking through, it was about, an hour and a half, 2 hours? I mean, we just talk about so much: earlier life, teenage years, key relationships, intimate partners, where you are now, where you want to be in the future, relationships with siblings, parents. I mean, only once you've got that full picture, I think really can anyone, whether it's hypnotherapy or any treatment, to be honest, really help to get someone moving in the right direction.
I agree. And I think as well, like, what I found is you have to get all the demons. You have to say all the demons. If you bring all the demons out, it's like taking the weight from your shoulders. You can't hold anything back or leave anything back. You have to bring it all out, however ugly it is, warts and all, to really get the progress in that session, to have the breakthrough. But I mean, I'm just thinking here now, would you say at that point when you were on stage with Paul McKenna, was that a pivotal changing moment in your life?
100%. I mean, I didn't, I never, if someone said to me when I was 25, you'll be helping people with challenges with their weight and various anxieties.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be ridiculous because I was overweight and completely anxious. I mean, what are you talking about? It's just, I mean, I was in a pickle. And, but yeah, I mean, when Paul done that, a bit like a lot of people when they see our website, and much like with me with Paul, it's like when he helped me with that, I was thinking, well, what else can this do?
Yeah.
And if it can help me with that, what else can it help me with? And that's when I then started reading about it. And I would say that's really when my education actually started. I mean, I was shockingly bad at school. I mean, my dyslexic brain it wasn't working. It just wasn't going in, and I just didn't get it. And people say to me, "Oh, if you had your time again, what would you do differently?" And a lot of my clients say, "Oh, I wish I tried harder at school." No, I don't wish I tried harder at school. I mean, I was trying. It just didn't work. My brain just couldn't do it. And so. But after that, being on stage with Paul, that's when I started learning, I would say. That's when I started reading. And I would say ever since then, I would say every day is a school day now. I'm still learning, It's so yeah, that was absolutely a pivotal moment.
And at that, I'm guessing, just my maths might be wrong. Is it around 2001-ish?
Yeah.
So if 2001.
Yeah. Bang on, 24 years ago, yeah.
You say you were, you just finished working as here. What were you doing at the time? Was it like a job where you just weren't fulfilled, or?
No, it was actually a really good job as far as making money's concerned as a young man.
Yeah.
And so I had a nice car. I had a few quid in my pocket.
Yeah.
But when people say money doesn't buy you happiness, I mean, I definitely felt I was flying the flag for that one.
Yeah.
But I also thought my whole identity was those things, because I had a nice little sports car. I had a pair of Gucci loafers and a silly watch, and thinking, but then when I lost that job, I almost felt like I lost my identity in a way. And but actually it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because if I stayed in that job, even if that job carried on going, I might have had more money, but I was far from happy. I was such a long way from happy. And I think a lot of people, that you kind of have to hit those lows to then actually realize. It wasn't until I lost that job, and then after a few months of really hitting rock bottom, is when I think that's when the real magic happens. Because you could say, was it the pivotal moment when I worked with Paul? Well, yes, because I learned some really cool things there, and he opened my mind up. But actually, I could have seen Paul McKenna 5 years earlier, but I didn't. What made me drive me to get on that internet, get onto dial-up, and try and ask Jeeves. I could have done that 3, 4, 5 years earlier, but I didn't. I wish I did. But it wasn't until I lost my job, and you get to those points where you feel like you're in a corner. It's like, right, okay, the buck stops with me. And I think, I used to have you'd have resentment towards people. You thought, if this was different, or if I went down a different route, or if I was guided in a different way. But actually, they're all just excuses. And I think all of us need to get to that point. It's like, well, they're the cards I've been dealt with. Actually, the buck now stops with me. So what are you going to do about it? And that's when I think change happens.
This is it. It's like I always talk about participating in your own rescue.
That's a nice way of saying it. I like that. I've never heard that before.
I love that saying, because everyone can be a victim, and everyone can blame others. But there's a quote out there, and I can't remember who said it, and it applies to obviously women and men, but it's strong men blame themselves and weak men blame others.
Yeah, I like that.
And that is...
I'd agree with that.
Because you yourself could think, oh, it's easy just to say, oh, it's because of this, because of that. Have resentment to this, have resentment to that. But actually, you can choose what you want to do. Like in my instance, I wasn't feeling great. I was probably the worst I've ever felt. Well, I'm going to do something about it. So, I heard about hypnotherapy, and then I was literally straight on Google, and you popped up. And I thought, looked at your reviews, I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go for the best, because that's how I do things. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to use the best. And I just, I could have sat there, I could have been a victim, I could have felt bad about it, but I was like, no, even though I feel horrendous, I'm going to pull myself out, and I'm going to participate in my own rescue to feel better. And it worked. And, I just think there's so many people in the world struggling this day and age. And they need to, this is so important to share with them how you can actually help yourself.
I think a lot of people don't realize how quickly sometimes change can happen, because quite often people will go and see a therapist for often months, if not sometimes years at a time, and they don't often believe how quickly change can happen. And for example, if someone's got someone could have been flying all their life, they enjoyed flying as a kid, and then they have one bad experience, and where they're flying and the turbulence was bad, the plane's dropped, and in that moment they've developed a fear of flying, which is now hindering them for the rest of their lives, where they're now avoiding holidays and stuff like this. And then only once they have children and they feel guilty that they're not giving their children a holiday, that they then try to seek change. And what they often don't realize is that we can make that change almost as quick as the issue happened in the first place. And that's why people say, hey, can you really help someone in just sort of 3 or 4 hours? It's like, well, absolutely. And but I think the biggest lie any of us can say to ourselves, and I said it to myself for so many years, is that we feel that we're dealt with the cards that we've been dealt with, and that change is not possible. Like when I was growing up, and I'm sure if any of my friends are watching, you are. But I had one friend. He's charming.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so charming. I mean, he's tall, he's good looking. Girls love him. Guys want to hang out with him. That was not me. And I've got another friend. I mean, he's just funny. I mean, like everything he says.
Yeah.
I mean, people can just, like Michael McIntyre, they can just turn everything into a joke. I mean, that was not me. I was not the charmer. I was not the funny man. I was kind of the short, chubby, kind of awkward one. And I always heard people always used to say, "You're not a bad looking guy. You just need to lose a bit of weight." I heard that one quite a lot. But no, I just thought that they were the cards that I would dealt with. I didn't think I could actually change. And that is the biggest lie that any of us can say to each other, because change is absolutely possible, and it takes a decision, but that decision can only come, from that individual, just like you did.
Yeah, this is it. And it's, you made a really good point about it earlier on, but you've got to want the change.
Yeah.
You have to want it. It can't be your girlfriend, your boyfriend, husband, wife,
because
whatever.
You're getting a bit of resistance from someone else.
It's got to be, you've got to be flat on your ass, basically, where you're sick to your stomach. Like when you talked about when you're logging onto Ask Jeeves, you're just at your rock bottom point. I'm really interested in, after that session with Paul, how did your life change in terms of, you've said you started doing research about hypnotherapy, NLP. How did it, what did it start to look like in, say, the 6 months, the year after that initial meeting?
So I then developed a bit of a thirst for reading.
Yeah.
So I started reading things on NLP, hypnosis, and I started feeling more confident within myself, and which was great, and I think my mum thought I'd gone barking mad because I was signing up for some life coaching program, 12-month thing, and I was spending pretty much everything I had on just learning stuff, learning from some great individuals, and everything I've learned, I think I've gone from like the originators in their field, like life coaching. I've learned from Tony Robbins, hypnosis, Paul McKenna. Richard Bandler for NLP, Dr. Callahan with TFT. I've gone to because I kind of thought, otherwise, if I go to someone else, maybe it's been diluted somewhere. So if I go to the creators of it, I feel like that I'm going to get the best. And I was fortunate enough, because of my job in town, that I could afford to do that. Although my money was rapidly running out because I was spending a fortune on this stuff. But
that's what it's for, right?
But it was, I'd say it's the best thing I've ever done. But yeah, when I started learning things, I was then feeling more confident with myself. I was then making it so much easier to make new friends, but the one thing I didn't have was a girlfriend. And what few friends I did have, they've now, they bought a little flat with their girlfriend. Someone else has bought their own little place. Someone's moved in with someone. Someone's bought a little cottage somewhere. And at that point of my life, I'd just had, a few drunken one-night stands with people who can't quite remember maybe what they look like, and so wasn't very meaningful for relationships. And I just said, so I thought, right, well, how can I learn about this? I want to learn more about relationships, and so I then went on a mission learning about sort of masculine and feminine ways. I mean, I read literally, well over 100 books on masculine and feminine ways, and now that's a big part of my work now. In fact, I actually had a client. Just last week, he phoned me up. He goes, "I understand you understand about relationships." He was recommended by a friend. I said, "Well, yeah, a little bit." And and he goes, I want you to. He goes, my wife has kind of put me in a corner, and she's given me an ultimatum.
Right. Okay.
And she said, it's either the band or me. And we had a nice chat for about 20 minutes. And he was like a lead singer in a band. He's a pretty big singer, and obviously I won't mention who he is. And we spoke for about 20 minutes, and I really felt I got a bit of an inkling what was going on. And so he booked in, come and see me, come into central London, and we spent about 3.5, 4 hours together, and we were talking, but much like you, for about the first sort of hour and a half, really getting to understand him as an individual. And I saw what it was going on. It was actually quite simple, and he just wanted me to say, look, either stay in the band or leave. And he just wanted a third party bit of advice. And I said to him, what's it like singing in this band? And he goes, I feel like a god. He goes, honestly, he goes, I absolutely love it. And he was doing it long before he met his wife.
So that,
And he does pretty big
Yeah.
gigs, pretty much every Thursday, about twice a week. He does
Yeah.
like a Thursday and a Saturday, or Friday and a Saturday. And I said, well, it's quite an easy decision, isn't it? He goes, we've got 2 little girls.
Ooh.
He goes, it'll break their heart. I was like, oh. And I said, would you love your wife?
Mm.
There was a bit of a pause.
I went, no.
He goes, well, I did.
There you go.
I went, right. And I said, and we spoke a little bit longer. I said, how about this? Why don't you stay singing the band and have your wife look at you like you're a god?
Yeah.
And he went, well, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
said, this is exactly what you need to do. I said, I want you to go home tonight and I want you to say these very words.
Yeah.
And I want you to say them exactly like this. You're going to say, darling, I love you more than anything else.
Mm.
But I really enjoy
Mm.
playing in the band, and I'm going to continue to play in the band. But I love you
Yeah.
and our kids more than anything else, and I will do anything to make this relationship work.
Yep.
And he looked at me and he kind of smiled. And I said, I know what you're thinking. I said, she's going to just say, yeah, I've heard it all before, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay, when this happens, she's going to come at you like a tornado.
Yep.
She's going to come at you like Quentin Tarantino
Yep.
style.
Yep.
And I said, but you have to do 2 things.
Yeah.
I said, the first one is
Yeah.
when she comes at you like a tornado, when she's saying those really nasty things, probably telling you're a bad father and all these nasty things, you've got to look at her with nothing but love.
Mm-hmm.
And he went, okay. I said, you know it's coming.
Yeah.
You know she's going to be nasty.
Yeah.
You have to look at her with love.
Mm.
He goes, what's the second one? He didn't like the first one.
Yeah.
I said, the second one, for the next 60 days,
Yeah.
you must do 1 act of kindness towards her
Mhm.
every day for the next 60 days.
Mm.
And we talked about when they first got together, how he used to buy like some flowers, or
Yeah.
he'd send her like really nice little text messages.
Yeah.
And we sat down for about another 20 minutes and we crafted some of these things he could do, what he could do. And like he said, sometimes he normally comes in of an evening and he'll just go into his office and do some emails, and
Yeah.
and his wife will be making dinner, the kids will be playing on the carpet, and then she'll call him in and they'll have dinner together.
Yeah.
So I said, well, go into the kitchen where she's cooking, give her a hug before the emails.
Yeah.
As soon as you think that hug is almost finished, just squeeze her a little bit tighter.
Yeah. Mm.
And so we crafted loads of them. Anyway, he goes home, he says his thing, he starts doing these acts of kindness every day. And at 27 days, he phones me up. He goes, Adam, he goes, it's going really well, but I've got a question. I said, yeah, what is it? He goes, what do I do at 60 days? I said, what do you think
Yeah.
you should do?
Yeah.
He said, I think I should keep going.
Yeah.
I said, I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah. Don't stop.
And I spoke to him about 1.5 years later, and they're doing absolutely fine. He's still singing in the band.
This is. I've got loads of things going through my head right now, and this is. There's a guy I've been following for about 9 years, Corey Wayne, a guy in America, and he talks about relationships and masculine and feminine dynamics, and it's super interesting. And it sounds like what you're saying here is, and this happens to all of us, and it happened to me with my marriage, and you can get complacent over time, and the woman doesn't feel necessarily heard or understood, and you stop dating and courting her. And what you've described to me there is basically that situation. But what's really interesting is she probably fell in love with him because he was the singer, the god in the band anyway. So if he just stopped doing that, then she would kind of be like, oh, but then he's not him anyway. So the advice you've given is brilliant, because he's saying, I'm still doing what I love doing, but I love you and the kids more. But actually, I'm going to show you that I appreciate you and that I care about you by showing these acts of kindness. And that's the making her feel heard and understood, and dating and courting her, isn't it? So it's kind of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what? I was actually gonna show you something. Actually, I remember. In fact, it was where I was actually going to go earlier. It was a client that I had just last week, and then I think I changed my story slightly. But you almost want, in a relationship, and I think where a lot of men get lost in translation. Where's the camera? It's sort of like here. You kind of want it to be, if you imagine like this graph,
Yeah.
and then you want to be like a masculine man that leads, wants, and gets
Yeah.
unapologetically.
Yeah.
And then the feminine energy
That's it.
can kind of orient herself around this feminine energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the camera picking this up? Are you getting this? You getting this? Is that getting it? Yeah. And so
If you turn it
a little bit more like that, yeah?
right at the lens. Yeah.
Right at the lens.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can see this. And I think this helps with the guys because we get so lost in translation because that dichotomy of a woman's mind wants to experience like two conflicting emotions about the same thing at the same time, which basically drives men up the wall. I mean, most men get really lost with this. And so, you know, when my client literally just last week, he goes, oh, like, she'll be up here. So he's like, she's saying she wants to do this thing, and he gives her that thing. And then she's saying she wants something completely the opposite. And it's driving him up the wall. He goes, I can't keep her happy. He goes, and he's trying to give her everything that she wants. And then she's like, oh, you know, we haven't got our future taken care of. Maybe we should get a couple of little buy-to-let apartments. He's like, okay. And he's like, he's going to get some little buy-to-let apartments. And then all of a sudden she's saying, oh no, you know, we need to get more clients. We need to, you know, build a better website. He's like, okay, I'll build a better website. And he's trying to give her everything that she wants, which is exhausting, other than the one thing that she needs, which is this masculine man that can lead, want, and get unapologetically.
That's it.
But here's the rub, and this is the tricky bit. If a woman's up here and we're on our path, it can create a bit of resistance in that moment. Or to put it bluntly, an argument. We're going to start shouting at each other. But as long as you stay on that path, that resistance will always transcend into respect. And any good relationship is only ever based off of two things, which is trust and respect. And as long as we don't violate those two things, it helps us to keep everything moving in the right direction. But I think that might help, you know, some of your listeners.
This is it. And I completely agree with everything you're saying, because in a relationship, once the respect has gone, then the woman can't love you because the respect's gone. And I think, you know, it's really good that I'm hearing more and more, you know, people are starting to talk about masculine and feminine energies, but it's you know, and as this guy that I've followed for so many years, but you just have to keep refreshing your mind because we can get so complacent, can't we? We get, you know,
I know even I forget sometimes.
It's hard,
I said to my wife, probably about a month or so ago, I said, I feel sorry for most guys out there because I've got training and I still get lost sometimes, you know? I still need to remind myself.
Yeah, it's refreshing, isn't it? And it's just, right, I need a little refresher and ground yourself. And God, it must have been about 9 years. And at that time when, you know, I came to see you, I just was like, my anxiety was so bad, I couldn't even the conversation, I just was like, right, I'm done with women for now. And, you know, it's, obviously all that has changed and we can talk about that, privately, but it's, I believe that this is just basic stuff that just imagine if this got taught in schools.
Oh, I mean, I've always said everybody should have a therapist, to be honest. I think the world would be such a better place. But no, these things don't get taught in schools. And you know, men and women, we are fundamentally, you know, wired up differently. You know, as human beings, we can only focus between 1 and 6 things at any given moment. Guys, we're between 1 and 3, and women between 4 and 6s. That's why sometimes I can sit on my sofa looking at my wife doing about half a dozen things really successfully, and give me more than 2 things to do at any given moment. My world starts crashing down very, very quickly.
You've actually got a really interesting story, haven't you, about how you met your wife?
Yeah.
Do you want to share? Is it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, obviously with my social anxiety, I was my communication skills were a little bit rusty, but obviously I then learned a lot about communication. And I was in central London. It was Marylebone High Street, which is actually right near my office, actually. And which wasn't my office at the time. But no, when was this? This was when I was, so this was 17 years ago. I was 33 at the time. And I was walking down Marylebone High Street and I saw this girl and I thought she looked absolutely gorgeous. And And I remember her eyes were sparkling and she was smiling. I mean, who smiles on their own walking
in
down the street?
London.
Not a lot of people actually. And I don't know. I was obviously feeling a little bit brave, and I went straight up to her and I just said, "I just noticed you, and I think you look absolutely gorgeous. I just want to say hi." And she took a bit of a step back. And
So what's he going to do to me?
She goes, "It takes a lot of courage to do that." And we had a little chat for about 6 or 7 minutes. And I said, "Look, I've got no idea if you've got a boyfriend or anything." I said, "But if you haven't," I said, "I'd love to take you for a coffee sometime."
Yeah.
And she went, "Yeah, all right." And so I got my phone out. I said, "Well, you better give me your number then." And she gave me a number, and I texted about 2 hours later. I said, "Oh, meet me in that Starbucks 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday."
Yeah.
And she came back with one word and said, "Sure." And I thought that was a bit frosty, but it was still positive. It was still kind of a yes.
Yeah. She's still
So
coming.
still coming, hopefully. And I got there at 5:30 on the dot.
Yeah.
Didn't try and be late, or just got there on the time. And so did she, actually. She's very efficient, my wife.
Yeah.
And we went into Starbucks and we shared we had 2 coffees each and shared a blueberry muffin. And 3 years later, I married her.
Wow.
And now we've got 2 little girls that are now 12 and 8, Arabella and Amelie, which are awesome. And it'll be our 15th wedding anniversary coming up.
And that all came from the confidence that you had obtained and the motivation from that Paul McKenna chat to a few years later, you're able to walk down Marylebone High Street.
Isn't it bizarre?
Isn't it amazing, though, how things have a knock-on effect?
Oh, it just leads on to the next thing, But it's because, what I learned from Paul on stage certainly didn't give me the understanding or the knowledge or to meet my wife in the street, or give me even the confidence for that. In fact, I've got a lot of female friends now, and they often say to me, "I wish I could just meet someone like how I met how I met my wife."
Yeah.
And they'll often say, "This complete weirdo come up to me today," and I've heard this so many times.
Yeah.
That guy is not a weirdo. Yeah. What's weird was his approach.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like when if you meet someone in a non-social environment, it's important that you answer the initial on an unconscious level, the why and the what. And what I mean by that is that when you approach someone in a non-social environment, that they are, in the back of their mind, they are thinking, why is he here? And what does he want?
Yeah, is he going to stab me?
And when I and when I went up to my now wife at the time, I said to her, "I just noticed you. I think you look absolutely gorgeous. I just wanted to say hi."
Yeah.
On an unconscious level, she just got it. Why is he here?
Yeah.
He said he just wants to say hi. What does he want? Oh, he says he fancies me. He thinks I'm gorgeous.
Yeah.
Without her processing it, she understands it, and therefore she's not actually trying to run away in that moment. And we could then, de-strangify ourselves and have a nice conversation and ultimately move things along. Or some might call it, because people often say, "Did you hypnotize your wife when you met her in the street?" And
just quickly, and
the absolute truth is kind of yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all hypnosis is basically effective communication skills, and it was basically like conversational jujitsu, if you like.
Yeah. Well, this is it, and I think what's just kind of gone off in my mind there is, when these women are saying to you, "I met a weirdo, blah blah blah," what do you say to them? What did he say? What did he do? And what kind of things do they come back with? What are they? Oh, he did this, or it was like, does it seem weird or?
Well, yeah, but it's only because of their lack of knowledge and understanding and learning a few things. It's not that individual is weird. A weirdo.
Yeah.
It's just his approach is weird because he's never learned how to. Communication is is an art and a science. It's a skill like anything else. And I think these communication skills, these should absolutely be taught in skills.
Yeah.
I mean, it's essential. So. Like, people, when they think of hypnotherapy, and for me, I just look at it as, it's common sense. Some people, unfortunately, because of Paul McKenna, if you go back to the 1990s, and as much as I have so much respect for Paul, when he was on Saturday night TV in the 1990s, turning people into a chicken or making them feel like they're a Martian from outer space. There's people still remember that. So a lot of people over the age of about 37 are a bit more sort of skeptical of hypnotherapy because they remember seeing those things on television. But sort of the younger generation, I think now embrace it as actually it's just a very plausible way of getting benefit.
This is it. And I was actually talking to my dad before, I think a couple of days before I came to see you, and he said, "Oh, I've had hypnotherapy once." I was like, "Oh, what's that for?" I was going to have a tooth out. I went, "And did it work?" He goes, "Yeah, I didn't feel a thing."
Yeah. Yeah.
my
My dentist is actually in my office underneath me in Harley Street. And quite often he sends clients up to me and then I send them back down again. So yeah, they're like really anxious about, having some
And it's literally, and it can literally pain's blocked out, or
you can literally switch pain off.
wow.
In fact, actually, there's another quick story, which I didn't even know I was going to share this one. But when my wife, when we had our first baby, obviously because of the nature of my work, we obviously went down the route of hypnobirthing, and so I was doing lots of the communication skills with my wife, and we went to. My wife said, "Oh, look, I think I'm going to have the baby," and so we got the bag and we went off to the Euston Hospital. I think it's called Euston, the one opposite Euston Station.
Is that the UCL hospital?
UCL, I think that's the one.
That's the one.
Green glass thing.
I know the one. Yeah.
And I went in there and they looked at my wife and they said, "No, we'd rather not check because it can potentially raise infection, and we really recommend that you come back in the morning." And it was about 9 o'clock at night. And I said, "Well, no, I'm a hypnotherapist and I've been doing a lot of the tools and techniques." And one of the nurses rolled her eyes at me as if to say, "Oh, really? Thinks he knows it all?" And obviously, we've never had a baby before, and I don't know whether we are about to have a baby or not. All I know is I'm just going through the motions, trying to do what I know how to do.
Yeah.
And my wife is cool as a cucumber, but she's breathing, and we're going through the motions, but she looks fine. Yeah. But she goes, "Adam, I really think I'm going to have a baby." And I went back, and they after the fourth time, they said, "Okay, we'll check." And they checked her and they said, "Oh, she's over 9 centimeters dilated. We need to get her in straight away." And I kid you not, 50 minutes later, our little Arabella was born.
And that's because
she was actually born at 10:44 p.m. that night. So we got to the hospital at 9 o'clock, and but they were telling us to come back in the morning the next day.
And that's she was born. She just didn't feel any pain
because I literally switched that off. The reason why most women's first birth is the labour is so slow is because of the pain. When you're feeling that pain, it releases a certain chemical into the body, which then slows down the pregnancy. But because I switched off the pain, the pregnancy, it was actually a really fast labour. But once women have had a second child, a third child, it's like, been there, seen it, done it. They don't associate. Like pain is a funny thing. Like I remember, it was a lovely chap, Alec Harvey, if you're watching, always enjoyed skateboarding with you. But when I was about 14 years of age, I remember I fell over on my skateboard and I stood up. And I remember Alec saying to me, he goes, "Adam, are you okay?" I said, "No, yeah, I'm fine." He goes, "Adam, look at your hand." I went, looked at my hand, and there's all blood literally kind of coming out. It was quite nasty. Yeah. And then I went, then I screamed out the pain. But if I didn't see it, I didn't associate, I didn't feel the pain. It's only when I saw something go, "Oh, that should feel painful." Then I started screaming out that I'm in pain.
Perception.
Yeah. So pain's a funny thing. You can really literally switch it off.
It's mind blowing. Like when my dad said that to me, I was like, wow, okay. But because he's my dad, I believed him.
It's a common one.
I literally, if someone else had told me that, I would have been like, okay. But because he'd go, "Yeah," and I had a tooth pulled out, I was like, this must really work. I'm really excited to go and see Adam tomorrow now because I know it will work.
Yeah, people go and see like a dentist and then going to see a hypnotherapist to help with the dentist. It's probably in the top 20 things that people go and see a hypnotherapist for. I mean, it's really common. Yeah, really common. Well, I'm impressed that your dad went along as well, because obviously being an older man, I would have expected him to be a little bit more skeptical. So all respect to your dad.
He's 71 now. I think this was years and years ago as well. It must be got like decades ago. So I don't know even when he did it.
I mean, the tools and techniques have changed a lot since then as well.
Yeah, so he was like, it worked really well. I don't know, actually, I don't know when the exact time was. Maybe it's more recent than that, but yeah, he's 71 years old, and he was like, it worked, didn't feel a thing. I was like, wow, okay. And that made me feel excited. But what I really want to understand is, how did you go into setting up that practice as well? What was it, say circa 2001, you're getting into it. When did you start thinking, right, this is my new career, this is what I want to do?
Yeah.
And how did you set up your practice on Harley? You've just recently moved office as well, haven't you?
You're right. No, it's still on Harley Street, but we've just moved to bigger, newer offices.
So again, it's progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
which is great. But what was that like at the start when you were trying to like get clients? And obviously, if people, especially the older generation, were more skeptical, like how was that in kinds of setting up your business and your practice? And
well, so my job finished in the city when I was 25, and then I would say for the next 5 years, that's when I literally just started learning. So I wasn't working; I was just spending, learning, and figuring things out. And I got to the point where I was learning so many different things.
Yeah.
And then someone said to me, "Do you think you could help me with this chocolate addiction?" It was a friend.
Yeah.
And I did, and it helped. And then I started just doing favors for people. I stopped someone from smoking. And in the end, I got to the point I was doing just lots of favors for people.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed doing it. And it wasn't because I wasn't even thinking of it as a business. It's just I'd learned so many different things. And then I'd helped a lot of people as friends, as favors. And I thought, actually, I really enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
And I thought, maybe could I do this for a living? And then I found this thing, there was like these directories out there for like therapists, life coaches, and different practitioners. And I looked at all their sort of qualifications, and I realized that actually, I think I'm more qualified than a lot of these people. And so I put a little website together. I think I spent about £500 or something. I put this little website together. And I remember the phone rung for the first time, and they booked in, and it was my first paying customer. And I think it was shortly after my 30th birthday. It was just shortly after my 30th birthday. I'm 50 now. Wow. And I really enjoyed it. And I spent I think it was about 3 hours with that one. Probably my sessions, they're normally somewhere between 3 to 4 hours. I think yours was maybe about close to 4 hours, maybe.
Yeah.
And
it was a long session, but
I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really and now I love it. I mean, I just, in fact, when a lot of my friends, we all went away last year, and we were all talking about, when we're going to retire. And I'm thinking, I can't imagine me not doing this, maybe might work 1 day a week less or 2 days a week less, but I can't imagine me never not working. I think it's a really unhealthy thing to just stop working. I've got a good friend that I always have a bit of a debate with, where he just wants to work really, really hard, and when he gets to 55, he just wants to stop and play golf. I think that's really unhealthy. I mean, just to then just play golf. I don't think that's sensible.
It sounds to me like, based on that, he might have to up it to 57 if he's relying on his pension, the private pension.
Yes, quite possibly.
It sounds like, I'm just going to go and play golf. I mean, that sounds like a nightmare to me, to be honest. I'm not a golfer, but so many of my clients over the years, I mean, like we're talking, I don't know, maybe certainly over 100 clients, I would say, like really wealthy individuals that have done really well for themselves, and they've retired at between sort of 50 and 55. Yeah. Most of them within 2 years go back to work because they literally fall into a depression. Yeah. And there's a good reason for that, because we can moan about our jobs. I moaned about my job in the city. Yeah. When I lost that job, I moaned about it for 2 years because we all knew that we were going to get made redundant. We knew it was coming. When I lost that job, I kid you not, Adam, within 2 weeks, I was like, I'd do anything to have my job back. Wow.
I mean, because although we can moan about our jobs, they actually give us something at the same time. And like as human beings, we have these kind of 6 human drivers that make for a happy and balanced. In fact, I'll tell you what, the first one is the need for certainty.
Yeah.
I mean, certainty feels like a nice warm blanket. I mean, I need to have certainty in the morning. I can have a nice hot shower so I can look the part for my clients. And, when I was 17, my first car that cost, about the same as my shirt now, there was probably a 50-50 chance it was not going to start. There was no certainty. I remember I had this little scooter once. I mean, I spent most of my weekends just waiting for the AA to come and save me. There was no certainty. Like, I couldn't have a little moped like that today because I need to have more certainty in my life so I can do my stuff, get to my office and all the rest of it. So certainty is the first one. The second one, and whatever your beliefs are, religious, whatever it might be, but whoever kind of put us here, they must have had a bit of a sick sense of humor or something. But the second one is the need for variety, or some might say uncertainty. And, variety being sort of the spice of life. And variety, we can find that in so many, different ways, but it's like just mixing things up, doing something you haven't done before, whether it's, in fact, I had a client of mine just yesterday, he just said he's just signed up for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Great.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
Just some new variety. So you want to get variety in your lives. And, but the third one, and this was actually a big one for me when I lost my job in the city. And the third one is the need or the driver for significance. We need to feel that, we feel significant. Like when I've got a client in front of me, my need of significance is getting filled up in that moment. So, they've paid money, they want a good job. I want to make sure I can do a good job. So I'm actually, forget what they're paying me. My need of significance is getting filled up in that moment. But when I wasn't working, when I was working, when that bell went at 7:30 in the morning, if I wasn't on that trading floor, hell would break out. So when I was doing that job, I was getting massive significance. I was getting, as much as it was stressful,
I bet it was.
I was still getting a load of significance, which is great. But now when I lost that job, well, I didn't even need to set an alarm. And it was like, I was feeling completely insignificant. So you want to make sure, people want to make sure that if they are looking to retire, you want to make sure you're getting your drivers met in at least one of two ways. So you might be getting met for your work, but make sure you're getting met somewhere else as well. But the fourth one is the need for connection and love. And connection, love is, I think that's pretty undeniable. But because all these sort of drivers or needs, as some people might call them, is people are always getting met in one of three different ways, either in empowering ways, neutral ways, or kind of disempowering ways. So, for example, if you're a 32-year-old woman and you're single and you really want a husband, you really want a partner, you really want a family, and you go and get a dog because you want connection and love. I would say that's probably a relatively neutral way of getting connection, love, because I think it might stop you from then finding the love that you really want that's going to give you the progress of having a family. Where if you're a 77-year-old woman and you've got grandchildren and your husband of 50 years has parted away and you go and get a dog for connection, love, I'd say that's a very empowering way to get connection and love.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And certainly what I'm seeing with a lot of people in my generation, and, they just either settle and get a dog, or they just settle with someone that they're not happy with. And it's I think what you've talking a lot about here about the masculine and feminine, and what I'd be really interested about is any tips that you'd got for individuals that are trying to have a relationship or that connection that you're speaking of. You must get asked that all the time, like, how can my relationship be better with my boyfriend, wife, husband,
Do you know what? There's one book that I often recommend, which every couple should be handed this at the altar. And I'm sure the author has no idea who I am, although I think I must have helped him sell a few books. But The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman.
I've read that.
I mean, it's a cracker. Like I said, I've read a lot of books on masculine and feminine ways. That one is a cracker. And the thing is, the whole book is based on case studies. And so, you'll read it. And I'll say to my wife, I said, look, we're Bob and Carol in the book.
Bob and Carol.
We're Bob and Carol in this book. And you see, I mean, it's really clever, the 5 love languages. In fact, it helped me and my wife personally. I remember when I first met my wife, we were going out for a while and we were getting a little bit lost in translation because I was saying nice things to her, and I'm quite tactile. If I talk, I'll put an arm on her shoulders, or we're watching telly, put our legs over each other, whatever. And But I'd say nice things to her, and it seemed like it would go over her head. But she'd in the early stages, she'd always turn up at my apartment. She'd give me a Costa coffee, and she'd always want to be around me. And then I realised that like you have a primary and a secondary. My love language is words of affirmation.
Yeah.
If you say nice things to me, Adam, I'll do anything for you.
Yeah.
And my secondary one is physical touch.
Yeah.
And but my wife's, and there's only 5, and my wife's is quality time.
Yeah.
Which means just being around that other person. Doesn't mean going out for an expensive meal or anything like, just being in the same proximity as, and she was always there.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, and her secondary, is gifts.
So the coffee.
And it doesn't mean exactly.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, what we think is how other people feel their love. And so she'd turn up with a coffee, and quite often, it was often the coffee that I didn't want. I found it more frustrating. I was like, I'd rather go and buy myself the right coffee, because I don't mind spending £3 on getting the right coffee rather than having the wrong coffee.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel love from that.
Yeah.
But I remember just a couple of weeks ago, there was a pop-up restaurant thing at King's Cross, and not a restaurant, it's like they sell like these sweets and things. And my wife, she loves licorice. And they're like these big snaky things, they're about £1.50 each. And you get like, I don't know, 4 of them for £5 or something.
Yeah.
And I bought these things, and I go home. I mean, I hate these things. Ugh, licorice, disgusting. And I gave them to my wife. I mean, she lit up like a Christmas tree. It was just, I mean, God, I wish that pop-up was there every day. I buy them every day.
Yeah. Here goes.
But we feel love in different ways. And I think once you understand how that other person's wired up, then we can then just give them those things. So now my wife says nice things to me. She's more tactile, and I'm around her, and I buy little things, and we just keep lifting each other up.
It's navigating the path, isn't it? And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about being consistent, and because we all get complacent, and that's when things go south quite quickly, isn't it? Being complacent, because
got to treat it like a plant. Got to keep watering it.
This is it. And I think as men as well, I mean, you talked about, purpose, drive, mission, you're on that kind of, that's the masculine energy, isn't it?
Yeah, very much.
And we can often get, I've been very guilty of it when I was with my wife, of just working all the time and not fulfilling her love languages, and that's, it's only when you look back in hindsight you think, I fucked that one up. But it's being okay with it now, and I think every relationship that you're in is an opportunity to learn and develop, isn't it? So inevitably, if you met someone else, you can go, well, I didn't do that great, so I need to be mindful of that. But it's keeping it consistent over that period of time, isn't it? For many years and decades. So
I think if I had to give your listeners another one little tip, and I think sometimes easier said than done, but I think it encapsulates it quite nicely, is that you've always got to make your partners feel like they're number one. You've really got to make them feel like they're number one. And I would even say even more so than your kids. Don't get me wrong, I'll die for my kids. I'll do anything for my little girls. I mean, absolutely anything. But I think when you make your partner number one, because I often say to my wife, I think one of the best educations we can show our kids, no matter, how they do at school, what they like with their friends, all those things are super important. But I think the best thing we can show our kids is what a great relationship looks like. I think if we're solid, if the kids see us and we're kissing and cuddling and we're good, I think that's a great education. I think so.
This is what that Corey Wayne talks about in his book as well. It's almost, a lot of people seem to stay in the relationships for the kids, but actually that's a really bad idea, because it's then
you're putting the kids first, and then
and it's modeling the wrong relationship model for the family, and then inevitably that pain and suffering carries on for future generations.
I mean, kids, they're so intuitive. I mean, you don't have to say it. You have to. You can't tell them. You got to lead by example. Don't tell them anything. Just show them.
This is it. And I guess, what other pieces of wisdom do you wish more people knew about? What would that be? Like in general, we're talking about relationship skills. What other little nuggets would you say that?
I think movement, as in, I think you just got to keep moving. I mean, a lot of people get stagnant and get scared of movement. And I mean, you've got to keep moving. you know, going back to my friend I was saying about working really hard. I mean, he's moving a lot at the moment. Yeah, he's moving 150 miles an hour, 17 hours a day. Wow. So he can get to that point where he can just play golf every day. I mean, no, it's not. I mean, you've got to keep moving, and it's really not about keeping up with the Joneses and buying a bigger car or buying a nicer home. It's really not. But it's that constant progressive realization of a worthy goal, just keep okay, the reason why I'm here, I mean, it happens myself, I've been doing my sessions, and as much as I love doing them, I can't just keep doing those, and I could feel it in myself probably about 18 months ago. I was thinking, like, do you know what, something needs to move forward. And we've done a refurbishment on my home last year, and that kept us busy, and I enjoyed that, because that's now the home has progressed. But even with my work, I was like, right, what's the next thing? And I get so many people asking me, like, can you teach me? And now I really want to move into training, and to do the training. And people say, well, you need to have more foundations with social media and stuff like that. And I've always been avoiding things like social media. And I literally only just started it about 2-3 months ago, and actually I'm really enjoying it. And now here I am doing a podcast with you, which I would never have done that if I didn't. And I'm really enjoying doing these new things now. I'm no different to anyone else. I'm no finished article. We just got to keep moving. There's always going to be another thing.
This is it. I completely agree. It's just that I think what's really important is that self-reflection, to realize, okay, I can grow by doing this. This is going to be good for me, good for my soul. And I'm not going to just stay here and remain stagnant, because that does cause misery, doesn't it? When you're stagnating. And I think what you've talked about, and you shared earlier about once you lost the job and you're off the trading floor and you're there and you're like, oh, I've got no purpose, and you're not progressing, then you got really low. And I think, I've certainly can recall times in my life where it's the same, and then it's finding that new purpose. I was always terrible at keeping jobs, and I've told you this before. I am the world's worst employee, right? So it's always inevitable that I would set up my own business. And now that I've got that, all that kind of madness is just gone, because I'm just focusing on my purpose and my business and helping my clients. And that feels like I've made more progress in the last 2.5 years than I probably have in the 10 years before that.
Joy, you just sharing that just reminded me that when I was talking about those 6 human drivers earlier, I mentioned 4 of them, but I didn't actually mention the last 2, and the last 2 are actually kind of optional. And you kind of just sort of reminded me of those last 2, because the 5th one of the last 2 of the 6, if you like, is growth. If we're not growing, we're dying. Nothing really sits still. I was about to say, like, even if you've got like £1 million sitting underneath your mattress, and you leave it there, it's not growing, it's actually diminishing, like with inflation or whatever. So we need to sort of keep moving. So the 5th one is growth, moving forward. But the 6th one, the last one, or the 2 that create fulfillment, and I really like this one, which is contribution. Giving back some way. Do you know what? I think that's why I'm really enjoying this. So, I just realized it myself. I think that's why I'm really enjoying doing this social media and even doing these podcast types of things, because it's like you're just giving, and it feels good to give. Like if I saw a little old lady trying to lift her suitcase up, and you help the lady bring the suitcase to the top of the stairs, it can't help but put a bounce in your step afterwards. So it's not about signing over 5% of your income, but it's about giving back in some way, whether it's helping someone, whether it's doing a podcast, whether it's just helping others in some way. It just that's where fulfillment really comes.
I'm a big believer in that. One of the guests we've actually had on, Reese, the mixed martial artist fighter, like, my company sponsors him for his fight camps and things like that. And for me, it's kind of, I don't speak about it a lot, but for me, it's kind of helping him as a person instead. I'm one of these people. I'm not a fan of, if I put money to this charity and it goes to this, and because there's running costs and there's salaries involved in that kind of thing. But when I'm actually giving directly to someone and seeing the benefit that has on that individual person, that for me is like,
good, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's, it's quiet, it's just me, and it's not like I have to go and make a just giving page or something like that. It's just literally, what do you need? Okay, I need this and that. Okay, cool, there you go. And to see him progress, is, I feel like is like an older brother or his dad. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of being able to help someone with what they're truly passionate about as well. So yeah, I really would agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah. No, nicely said. Nicely said.
It's what I am really interested to kind of understand as well is how, you've obviously moved practice now in Harley Street. How did that, bigger practice come about? Was it a natural transition? Had you always been there, or was it like stepping stones to Harley Street, then bigger office, and what was that?
Yeah, we just need a little bit more space, really. So I've been at my old office. I was there at that particular office. I think it was 12 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it was quite a while there, and yeah, we're just outgrown it now, and it feels nice actually because we've moved to these bigger premises. I've got junior therapists that keep me busy and keep us all busy, and it was just the right time,
And do they practice there as well?
Yeah,
the juniors?
absolutely. Like about 80% of my industry have all gone online. Like COVID was a very good excuse to get rid of the offices, bring their fixed costs down.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sit well with me. I mean, it's online sessions can be really good, but I still love having my office. I like going there and seeing my other therapists, having a chit chat. I mean, we're social people, It's so although these online sessions can be fantastic, I still like my face. I don't know. I've got no interest in giving up my office anytime soon. Put it that way.
I think I think as well, like my experience of coming, I would have felt like, oh, how's it going to work over the internet? Because you really need to, really, in my experience, you need to immerse yourself in the whole experience of being there.
Yeah.
The sounds, the environment, it played a big part. I still remember now the blanket that your wife got.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, oh, this is my wife got this. And I was like, I still think about that when I listen to your tape.
It's funny you remembered that.
Yeah. And it just stuck with me. And it was, and I listened to your tapes all the time. And when I just got this iPad the other week and I had to reformat the Mac, I was like, oh, shit. Like I wiped it off. So I contacted your PA and she kindly sent them back again. And I was just like, I felt relieved because I was like, I need those. They keep me grounded listening to these tapes.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely unreal. And
I spent about 4 months putting those audios together.
Really good.
Yeah, I actually thought my wife was going to leave me if I didn't get out of that studio. I mean, they're really clever. I mean, I've got that subliminal communication in there and they're like overlapping with left brain, right brain. I mean, they're quite clever.
I remember like when I was flying to Thailand after we had those sessions, I was literally listening to them on the plane to Thailand.
Yeah.
And it was just, every time I listen to them, I feel so peaceful and calm after. It is, because no one's life is always perfect. And even in the day, sometimes it's, you might feel a bit, stressed. I'll go upstairs, I'll lie down on my bed, I'll listen to those tapes and I'll reset myself. And it is unreal.
Yeah.
Like it truly is amazing.
No, it's nice to hear that. It's nice to hear.
What would you say is, like with clients, some of the biggest transformations that you've seen over time?
We had one lady that was 23 stone in weight that's now 11 and a half, literally halved her body weight in, I think it was 15 or 18 months or something.
Wow. Just through diet. Diet and
she won't mind me mentioning her name because she very kindly gave us a before and after video testimony, which was very, very kind of her. But no, we've got literally hundreds now of video testimonials.
And that is just pure diet, pure exercise. There's none of these magic.
Yeah. Well, no, all of my clients, when it comes to sort of weight loss, for example, I mean, they all know what they should be doing. In fact, it's really nothing to do with education. I mean, you ask someone who who really struggles with their weight, like how many calories in a skinny latte, they know exactly how many. But ask someone who's naturally slim, how many calories in a skinny latte. I mean, they have no idea. So it's not about knowledge. It's about, like, for example, like before sort of people make a decision about what they're going to eat and also the amounts they're going to eat, there's kind of like an internal process that's taking place, and it's kind of three things. And the first one is the visual representations that they're sort of making in the back of their mind, the things that they think about, but the visual things they think about. The second one, which people often think sounds a little bit odd or a little bit bizarre, is actually our breathing along with our muscular tension. But the third one, which I think most people will be able to relate to, I think yourself as well, is that internal dialogue that we have going on in the back of our heads. And the biggest critic, we're ever going to meet is that little voice, which, feels like the devil and the angels sometimes doing a bit of a, tug of war. But what you might find interesting is that we have these sort of 64,000 thoughts pretty much every single day. And about sort of 95% of them are the same. So we waste all this time thinking about the same stuff. But those thoughts are really based off of one fundamental thing, which is our beliefs. And a lot of people think our beliefs are shaped in our childhood, which for the most part they are, but they are constantly being changed and challenged into our 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond. But to kind of explain a belief just very briefly, actually, if I share one of mine, like with my, I was told when I was about 19, I had a chocolate addiction, which really helped me to put on about another stone. But if I go back to, actually probably about the same as one of my daughters, I was probably about 12 years of age. I was one of four boys, number 3 son. And I remember at Easter, we all got these 4 big Easter eggs each. And I swear I polished mine off in about an hour.
Oh, the whole thing's gone.
The whole lot gone. And still remember it. And but 2 of my brothers enjoyed them over the next sort of good few days. But one of my brothers, Marcus, would have a little bit and put the rest back in the fridge. Have a little bit, put the rest back in the fridge. I thought he was trying to wind me up, but they would last like 2 or 3 weeks. But it kind of planted a bit of an idea that, okay, I think I like chocolate a little bit more than others, or certainly a little bit more than my brothers. Now, if you imagine that idea, actually imagine like that. Imagine that idea is like this table. The legs that support that idea, that tabletop, are like our experiences in life, our reference points in life. So I then remember a few weeks later, sort of walking out this sweet shop with my good friend Mike, and he had 1 double-decker chocolate bar in his hand, but I had 2 of them. And so that was another experience, another reference point. So as we get more experiences, more reference points, it then becomes like a solid table, a solid belief. And what my job is to do is sort of go in there and really sort of knock out those legs on those existing limiting beliefs that people have. And the reasons why our sessions are so incredibly long, at good almost, as you know, about sort of 3.5, 4 hours, albeit just the one session, is that we create new experiences, new reference points. So when people leave our practice, they actually feel that they're operating from a new belief system.
That's how I feel now. Like old beliefs are just gone, and it's like, shouldn't I feel like that? And it's like, no, that was before. And it's like almost like it's gone blank, and it's not even there anymore. And that's what I found so amazing. It's like, and we can talk more as well later about it, but like,
I actually remember, unreal. I do actually remember your session, even though it was a little while ago now. But it's but when helping people with those kind of challenges, and also with people like their eating patterns, it's so tied up with their emotions. I mean, people are eating, it's not necessarily due to hunger, but it's due to emotional triggers. And so when we help people with like their eating patterns, it's important that we do it not just logically, but emotionally as well. But what that means in kind of practical terms is that when we sort of help people, there might be sometimes a few minutes where people might go through actually some very uncomfortable emotions of maybe frustration, loneliness, maybe even loss. But it's important that they do actually go through those before they then feel emotions of compassion, empathy, motivation, calm, a core confidence from within, but more importantly, that feeling of control.
Yes.
But before we get to those empowering emotions, it is important that we do go through some of those negative ones.
I was in
But
tears.
we will get to those empowering, and people feel it.
Yeah.
It feels like a weight has been lifted.
I can say now I was in tears going through those difficult emotions, but I knew we had to go through that to come out the other side. So I was.
Oh, that was I was very honest of you to share on the
I was
podcast.
shit
It did
myself
get a
before,
little emotional,
like literally, like really, like this is going to be tough. This is going to be brutal, but I just went with it, and I'm glad I did because I put more into it, and I believe I got a lot more.
It takes effort, doesn't it? I mean, I mean, then these sessions are not a walk in the park.
No, they are not.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying to me as well when I went home that day. You said you're going to be knackered tonight, and I was absolutely knackered. And I listened to the tapes, and I was I had the best night's sleep I've ever had.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, I slept so good that night.
Yeah,
and I just knew from then on it was amazing. So
Yeah.
I still can't thank you enough.
Absolute pleasure.
And you must hear that every day, to be honest, when you're dealing with people. It must be so.
Heard it once or twice. Yeah, no, it's lovely. It's lovely.
And I mean, you've mentioned now that you've got the new practice, and I keep talking about it because I think it's amazing. You know, seeing that progress and that development. What's next? You know, with the training, how are you looking to? What's your main goals now that you're trying to?
Yeah, so it's all moving in the right direction, but once again, I'm back on another learning curve, really, you know. And so, although I've learned some really cool things, I'm now putting it all together where I can actually now teach it to other people and certify other people so they can go off and help people. And it just seems like it's the next natural progression. You know, people have been asking me for so long now, and quite often it's often people that are hypnotherapists that actually want to just sharpen their skills, or you know, they've seen we've got like literally hundreds now of Google reviews and videos and stuff, and they're like, okay, how do I do that for my clients? And so now I'm putting that all together, and that's going to be the next thing.
And how I mean, you mentioned earlier that when you were looking on the old directories, there's people with certain qualifications.
Yeah.
What are the qualifications for anyone now that wants to get into this and thinking, oh, I'd love to learn from Adam? What are the kind of entry requirements that they would need?
Yeah, so there's a few things you need to. There's a register, the General Hypnotherapy Register, the GHR, and so to get on there, you need to do a diploma in hypnotherapy, and it's getting harder and harder, which is a good thing because the standards are really getting ramped up now, which is so good. Which I'd like to think I've been, I've helped towards that. To be honest, it's it's important, and actually give us a call because I can help them, and that's exactly what I want to be doing. But there's a few courses. It's not easy. It probably takes a good sort of about 12 months of training to get someone where they're just about ready, where they could start helping people. And it's but it takes a bit of effort, it takes a bit of work, but at the end of it, I mean, it's I highly recommend it as a profession for people out there that are thinking of doing something new. And I think if they've naturally got a sense of an empathetic behavior about them, I think that can be really, and they've got to be willing to learn, of course, as well, and put in some hard work.
So essentially, the first instance would probably be to check out your social media, see what the bits that you've got going on there, give you a call, and kind of take from that progress. And something that you'll be doing is kind of running that training going forward now. So that's really, really good, because no doubt people that watch it, I'm sure they'll be like, oh, how do I get into that?
We've got a massive need. I mean, there's I think there's something like 7,000 now, just hypnotherapists alone, just in the UK. But no, there's such a big appetite for it now, and referencing Paul McKenna again, he's I wouldn't say he's come out of retirement. Maybe he has a little bit, but he's quite active again now, and I love seeing him active again now. And I think that's just got even more people, and Marissa Peer, another one who I've got a lot of respect for, and it's just raised the awareness now, these characters, and I think just more and more people are just flooding into it and realizing that you can get those solutions, and we don't need to be doing years of therapy, and I've got nothing against traditional therapy. I think it's fantastic. And I've always said, I think I said it earlier, that I think everybody should have a therapist, myself included. I think I'm a big believer of a problem shared is a problem halved. I think the world would be a way better place.
Does that ever, that's just kind of made something go off in my mind about, even you should have one. Do you ever get times where you listen to things that must be so bad? And how does that feel? Because I remember when we first met, you said
I didn't quite, what do you mean?
Like if someone's talking about how they're feeling or things have happened to them. I remember you saying when we first met, you're a bit of an empath. How do you deal with that in terms of, if you even think, we need to talk about things and maybe I'd need a therapist and everyone should have one. How do you deal with that as well? When you think, oh my God, I've just heard things that are like really difficult to hear.
I think sort of two things. I think, a lot of people in traditional therapy, they talk about transference. So not, as a therapist, not taking that home with you. So if you've heard something quite harrowing, you don't want to be taking that home with you into your wife and your kids and stuff like that. And so, there's different tools and techniques where we can keep that separation. So that's not really a concern. But when we do go through that initial talking through with say a client who's got challenges, if you imagine that initial extensive talking through is like a big old oak tree that represents the conversation. We might go down one branch and realize that's absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
And we might go down another branch and realize we need to explore an even smaller branch of that and maybe an even smaller branch of that one. And so we never quite know where we're going to end up. And it's what keeps my job interesting after all these years, because, we are all unique and therefore we are all just a little bit different. But after working with, well over 3,000 individuals now over the last almost 20 years in June, I recognize certain patterns pretty quickly. But still within those patterns, we've still got our own little unique way of doing things. Mm-hmm. And what my job is to do is to work out that little unique way of doing things. And only then, I think, can anyone, whether it be in hypnotherapy, coaching, traditional therapy, then help to get them moving in the right direction.
No, that's amazing. Thank you, Adam. And if you could leave a message for future generations, what would it be?
Oh, God. That was a message for future generations.
What would it be?
Put that one on me there. So what's the question here? If a message, was it a message?
Yeah, message for future generations.
I don't know, Adam. You've got me.
There's one part of it. If the biggest
message for future generations.
Yeah, in terms of the wisdom that you've gained over the last 20 years.
It's weird because do you know what I was almost about to say then?
Go on.
Which was the same thing that my mum said to me back in the day, which really didn't help me. Because she said, just be yourself. Just be yourself. And it's the right advice to hear. Unfortunately, it's quite hard sometimes to work that out. You need help to be yoururself. Actually, no, do you know what I'd say for future generations? Don't go alone. Don't do anything alone. Don't try and do your business on your own. Don't try and do anything on your own. You be a team player. I mean, just you can't do it on your own. And there's plenty of people that have done many businesses on their own, and they're making a fine living for themselves. But something's missing when they do that.
You need a team.
You need a team,
even if it's just two people. You need a team.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, be a team player, And if you don't know how to be a team player, or you don't think you're very good with people, well, figure it out.
Yeah.
Learn it.
Participate in your own messages.
Learn how to talk. I'd say my biggest hurdle was probably, was learning how to talk.
Yeah.
I was like, I couldn't get words out. I mean, I literally, just couldn't talk, and so figure it out. Everything, any behavior is a learned behavior.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if something's not quite right, I don't care what area of your life it is. There's someone out there that's written a book about it. There's someone out there giving a seminar about it, probably as we speak.
Yep.
There's, I mean, with the power of social media and everything now, I mean, there's so many people to figure out any problem that they think they might have. If you don't get that help from me, get that help from someone.
Yeah, we're so connected now, aren't we? It's just
and just so don't reach out, which is hard sometimes, because if people are in with depression, which is a real sad thing to say the least, but when they're in that hole, I mean, it's easier said than done sometimes, you know, and sometimes people need a little bit of encouragement to get out of that hole sometimes. But you know, if someone is in a bit of a hole, I mean, just you know, just reach out, ask someone, you know, just say, you know, I'm in a pickle.
Yeah.
Can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
And if that person can't help you, they might be able to put you in touch with someone that can, you know, but ask.
This is it. You might have my cousin getting in contact with you soon. Actually, he's been sharing some my experience with you. So yeah, hopefully that will help him as well. But that's I heard
pleasure.
I heard he wasn't great, so I reached out, like you're saying there. So yeah, no, it's really good. One last thing before we wrap it up. How do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? Oh, I don't know, Adam. What are these questions you keep throwing at me?
Getting deep.
How do I want to be remembered? I don't know. I think I don't know. Do you know what? It sounds a bit. I mean, for me, I think as long as if I can be a good husband and a good father and a good friend, if I've got some, you know, I think a lot of people would say you could count your good friends on one hand, and you know, I think I'm probably no different to that. I've got some amazing friends, you know, and I think, you know, if someone says at the end of that, you know, he was a good friend, he was a good dad, and he was a good husband. I mean, that's more than enough for me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Adam.
Really
pleasure. Appreciate it.
No, it's good fun.